Alright, as per usual, we'll wait for everything to boot up and then we will get started. Okay, cool. I'm just going to go over to YouTube on my phone just to make sure that everything is fine. And then we get going. Okay, nice. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started because why not? So, welcome to the 5th and final Switch Livestream Lecture series. This time we're going over the very famous, very simple tip over switch. So, it's a move that everyone knows, and honestly, I'm not going to make any big mechanical changes to the move because it is what it is, right? It is what it is as a move, but what I just want to do was to basically just offer some commentary on the context surrounding the move, as well as the timing for the move. Because I do think that's actually where the move actually tends to suffer for most people, right? So, with that out of the way, with that brief introduction out of the way, let's get into some history behind the tip over switch. So, if most of you guys have read Expert Card Technique, you'll know, which I assume is where most people actually learned this move from. You'll know that G. Newgard and Frederick Browie actually credit this move to Jack Merlin. And it is true, Jack Merlin did in fact publish a tip-over change. So, in Merlin's Master Manipulations back in 1927, by Jack Merlin obviously, he published the tip-over switch, tip-over change. But in that sort of handling of the tip-over change, he does a two-handed get ready, okay? But there's actually a publication that actually predates Jack Merlin's publication of the tip over change. That is Collins Card Conceits. I can't English apparently, but that was published back in 1925 by Stanley Collins, and that's, as far as we know, the very first publication of the tip over change. So, but the thing about these two publications is that they're both two-handed get-readies, where the tip over change that we all know and love today, that one actually uses a one-handed get-ready, and that one-handed get-ready actually comes from Expert Card Technique back in 1940 by G. Newgard and Frederick Browie. So that's generally where the golden standard of the tip over change actually comes from, right? It comes from Expert Card Technique with a one-handed get ready, as opposed to a two-handed get ready, which was published years beforehand. And so yeah, that's the general history behind the tip over change. It's a relatively straightforward it's a very straightforward history in terms of the move's development, because unlike the glide, there's really not much of a gambler's sort of perspective on move, because the glide, again, it was used as a sort of second deal, right? But this context and this position that you find yourself in for the tip over change this position is a position that is very much so exclusive to Magic, right? You will not see this context anywhere besides Magic. You won't see this in gambling, you won't see this anywhere else. You'll only see this in Magic. So that's why there's not really much history behind it, because this move was developed specifically for Magic, right? Whereas if you have the glide, you have so much more history because of the fact that it has a gambling backstory. But yeah, that about does it for the history behind the tip over change. And so let's get into the main mechanics behind the move. So, the tip over change. You'll have a card selected, but because you actually need the deck to be separated in halves, and both halves need to be squared up, I would just rather have the selection actually be selected from a dribble. So, if I just have a card selected from a dribble, I'm already in the proper position to get into the tip over change. Whereas if I have to do a spread, right? If I have to do a spread, I have to then square up everything, separate the deck, pick everything back up, right? So I don't want to do all that. So generally I just have the card selected through a dribble, and it's just going to save myself the headache, right? Or alternatively, if you want, I know some people do this, and that is to have the card selected through their favorite method, right? They then place the card face up on top of the deck like so. They're then just going to swing cut, and then they have the selection in the bottom half in their left hand like so, okay? Point is, the selection should just be on the top of the bottom packet like so, okay? While the top packet is held in your right hand in a bill grip like so, okay? So that's the general position of how you should start off a tip over change, right? So let's just say you have a card selected from a dribble, right? You're gonna push over this card with your left thumb, and using the left long edge of the right hand packet, you're just going to turn this card over. You're just going to flip it around like so, okay? And the reason why you're actually doing this is so then there's consistency in motion. Again, Ernest talks about this, but for everything, right? If your motion should always be consistent, because you don't want to, let's just say you're doing like a false deal, right? You're doing a false deal and your standard dealer script looks like this, right? But then you're suddenly changing into a false deal, and then you're suddenly adjusting it into an Ernest script. That's not consistent. So the moment that people see this, they'll know, oh, he's changing his grips specifically, so then he can do a move, right? So you want everything to be consistent. So the reason why you're turning over this card with the left side of the right hand packet is so that it remains consistent for when the move actually occurs, okay? So now that you have this card face up on top of the bottom bottom packet like so, you can then display it around, or you can actually hand this card out to be shown, right? And during this time is actually when you're going to execute the get ready, the one-handed get ready. So the get ready is entirely in your right hand over here, right? So what you're going to do is that you're actually just going to curl in your right middle ring and pinky finger around of this packet like so. So they're just going to be curled in until the pads are contacting the face of the bottom card over here, all right? And now that they're contacting it, what you're going to do is that you're just going to nudge these fingers towards the right. You're just going to nudge them, and you'll notice that they'll actually just rotate at sort of an angle like so, right? So they'll just rotate over here, and this is just an indifferent card, right? Doesn't really matter what this card is, it's just random, okay? So you're going to continue to rotate this until this card, the bottom left corner of this card is going to be free from the thumb, okay? And once it's free from the thumb, what you can then do is that you can just start to just sort of pull upwards with these three fingers. And if you pull upwards with these three fingers, this card detaches from the rest of the packet like so. So you just levers downwards like so, okay? And now that it levers down, what you can do is you can then relax it. And when you relax these fingers, this card is going to come back up towards this packet like so. It's going to relax back, but there's one minor difference. This bottom left corner is then going to be stuck by the right thumb over here. It's going to relax, hit the right thumb over here, and it's just going to be blocked, right? But that's fine, because if you actually just relax your thumb, and then you curl back in, so then this sort of bottom part of the pad of your thumb contacts this back short edge of the card over here. So it goes here, relax, and then contact. Oh, sorry, it's kind of hard from this angle, but here, pop up, relax, grip, like so, okay? And what this does is that now you basically have a thumb break separating this bottom indifferent card from the rest of the packet over here, right? And of course, you should relax these 3 fingers once you have the thumb break. Okay, and now you have this one card separate from the rest of the packet over here. Okay, so once again, it's going to be a nudge to the right. So then this card pivots around the middle finger. It continues until it's free from the right thumb. Pull upwards with these three fingers. So then this card levers away from this packet. Relax these fingers until this card approaches the deck once more. The bottom left corner is then going to contact the pad of your right thumb, which can then just curl in and contact this bottom short edge of the card over here, and then you have a thumb break like so. And that's your get ready. It's just generally a very useful way to get a thumb break on one card using just one hand. Okay. But now that you have your get ready done, what you're going to do is that you're just going to retrieve the card. So your selection goes back on top of the deck over here, right? And what we're going to do now is that in the process of turning this card back face down, so you're just going to, again, consistency in motion, you're just going to use the left side of this right hand packet to turn this card over, right? So you're just going to turn it back over. But as you turn it back over, right? As you turn it back over, you're actually just going to relax these fingers, and then you're just going to let this card drop on top of this card over here. Okay, so it's a very simple relaxation process, and just by relaxing these fingers, it just drops on top. So now what you have is the selection and then an indifferent card. Okay, so it's essentially an add-on, and now you can just do whatever that you want with the card. G Newgard suggests that you actually thumb off the card onto the table. Okay, so he basically just suggests you show the card around, add it on, thumb it off, and then the card is still on top of the bottom packet like so. Okay, but of course it's a Switch, so you can do whatever that you want with it. And that's generally what's happening with the tip over change, right? It's just a simple add-on. The moment where you turn it around, right, you can then drop the card on top of the selection, and then you can do whatever that you want. Okay, so that is the tip over change. Now, if you of course, if you're having trouble with aligning this card with the bottom packet, right, because sometimes if you drop it, it might be off, right? You want to make sure that this packet is directly above of this packet over here, because then you drop it, right, it's just there, right? It just lands directly square on top of the packet. Otherwise, you can then just use your left finger to just sort of just square everything up, right? Obviously that's not recommended because that's just additional motion, but if it doesn't land completely square, you can always use these fingers to readjust this card over here. Okay, so that's that for the tip over change. Now, if you want to add multiple cards on top of the selection, that's also an option, right? So it's going to be the exact same thing. You have a card over here, right? You have a card over here. And what you're going to do is that the only difference is rather than pivoting the bottom card when you're wrapping these fingers around, right? You're actually going to wrap the fingers around the packet as per usual, but this time you're actually going to apply a bit of pressure with your index finger, and you're then going to lift up on the bottom of you're then going to lift up on the bottom left corner of this packet, and then you're just going to riffle off the amount of cards that you need. Okay, so let's say I need 2, so then it's just 1, and then well, that's too much. Sorry, it's a new deck, so it's kind of hard for me to control, but 1, and then, well, okay. This is not faring well. I swear I could do this with a broken. There we go, two cards. But I swear I can do this with more consistently with a older deck. But now that you have 2 cards riffled off over here, You can then relax your fingers, right? And you're basically in the same position as you were before, right? These two cards are then hanging loose. Now, if you tuck in these fingers, and then they contact the pad of your right thumb like so, you can then get basically the thumb break once more, right? You basically have the same thing as before, except the only difference is now you're doing it with multiple cards, right? So you have this riffle, relax over here. Sorry, it's kind of hard to do from this angle, especially because my arm is tucked underneath of my tripod, so it's kind of a struggle. But it's easier if your hand isn't tilted perpendicular with the ground. So if I'm doing it from here, right? Riffle. Well, that was 3, but relax. This packet contacts the left thumb or the right thumb like so, and then you can then grip everything. Relax your fingers, and then you have a thumb break like so. Okay, this is 3 cards. That's fine. And now we're going to do the move as per usual, because it's just to get ready, right? So now you're just going to use the left side of the packet to turn this card back over, and then you're then going to drop everything below of the thumb break on top of this packet. And of course that's 3 cards, right? So yeah, just having the ability to riffle off the amount of cards that you need is going to be very useful for whatever that you want. Okay, so 2 cards. Ugh, this is not great. This is not a good angle for this move, just because the cards just slide out. But you have this, riffle off 2 cards, relax, grip with your right thumb break, relax your fingers, turn this card over, and then add the 2 cards on top, right? So it is very much so possible to get multiple cards for the tip over change. All you really need to do is just to really change the get ready from a nudge to this into a riffle. Okay, so yeah, that is just the tip over change using a riffle. But of course, there are a couple of issues with the move, not necessarily with the mechanics, but just overall with the choreography and the pacing of the move. So whenever I see people actually perform this move, there's actually two things that I tend to notice. So one is that people actually tend to hover the top packet directly above of the bottom packet after showing the selection, right? They tend to do this, they hover on top of it, and then that's the switch, right? That's the change. Now, obviously, this packet needs to hover above of this bottom packet, so then the move works properly, because you need to drop this card down onto the bottom packet for the change to happen, right? But the problem with that is timing, because why would you immediately do this and then hover over it? Why would you immediately do this after showing the selection? Because when you're showing around the selection, that's where all the heat is going to be on your hands, right? Everyone's going to be looking on your hands when you're showing a selection. So why would you immediately do this after you're done showing the selection, right? This is a very odd part to be in, right? Because your hands aren't really together, but they aren't really apart as well, right? The only reason why these 2 hands would be together would be if you're squaring the deck up, right? And that's only for a brief second as well. So why would your hands just be hovering so awkwardly together, right? So that is something that I tend to notice. I've also seen people rush the move. So the moment that they turn the card, back over, they just do this, right? They tend to accelerate the turn over, just so then they can toss the card back on top, right? It's weird, right? It's really weird, because they use that speed to try and hide the move, but then you also have to ask yourself, why do your hands suddenly become jittery all of a sudden? Why do you suddenly speed up when you're turning the card back over, right? Again, consistency in motion, consistency in just about everything. Because if you're going to turn over this card, right, and you're turning it over at a leisurely pace, why would you suddenly do this, right? It just doesn't make sense. So honestly, I think the main issue really just boils down to this, right? People trying to do the move immediately after turning the card back over when all the heat is on their hands, right? It's a question about timing, and it's a question about choreography. God, I hate that word so much, even though I love to use it. It's just a question of those two things, right? So what's the solution to that? Well, the solution is just don't do the move immediately after turn the card back over, right? Break up the moves. I've seen people, because when people tend to actually just do moves, they read up on the move and then they're like, okay, so I have to execute this block over here for this effect to work, right? But that's not true, because sleights can also be broken up into many parts, right? They can be broken up into many parts. So let's just say something as simple as a double lift, right? People, magicians especially, they have this habit of seeing moves as just one big block. But if we look at something like a double lift, there are many procedures in a double lift, right? So first part is, of course, pinky count, and then I can stop there. I'm breaking up the double lift from the pinky count, right? And then I can just do the soft double, right? Stop there, right? And then I could do the turnover, and then stop there, display it, do the turnover again, right? So just one move that people traditionally consider as just one big block can be broken up into several steps, right? But each of those steps can also have a pause in between, right? Those are what people just call like half moves, right? Just doing moves just halfway through and then just continuing it onwards, right? It's like what's a good example? I don't remember. But just the DPS, right? The DPS, people just tend to go from here, King of Clubs, and then they go directly into, sorry, that was not good. But they tend to just go directly into the DPS, right? And then they tend to rush it. But the truth is that DPS, like any other move, can also be broken up into multiple parts. I can stop here, right? I can talk, I can do whatever. And then when I'm ready, I can do the DPS, right? So it's the same thing with the tip over change, right? Because the moment that I have this card just turned over, I can take a break. I can just talk. I can then show this card around, and then we can relax, right? I can also I can also stop the move over here, turn it back over. We can talk. We can do whatever, right? Because truth is, you're performing, you're talking, you're the one who's dictating the pace of the performance, right? Talk to your audience members, give yourself that time, that misdirection for you to perform the move. Because now that you're here, you have all the time in the world, all the misdirection in the world for you to just go above and then just deposit this card on top, right? And then obviously, if you want to make this move also look better, you can also add some choreography into it, right? Justify why, for just the briefest of moments, those two packets are close together, right? So just having the ability to break up moves into different little bits and then just adding an overall choreography for those little bits will make those moves just look that much better. So just as an example, right? Just an example, if I want to use this move as a control, you're going to have a card selected through a dribble, right? Show it, right? Face up, like so. Execute the get ready, right? And now you're going to turn the card back face down. And from here, you can then just talk, chat a bit, relax, and, just do whatever. And your left hand should then be in front of your right hand, like so. Okay, so you just talk, do whatever, and do this, right? Because your selection has been here, over here. So your right hand is in front of your left hand. So your left hand is in front of your right hand, like so, right? And now your right hand is then going to pass over your left hand, like so. It's going to pass over like so because it needs to, right? So it's going to pass over, and during this pass over motion, that's when you're going to drop this card on top of this packet over here, okay? So a left hand in front, right hand back, pass over, drop this card, and then you're then going to put this packet, this right hand packet, on the table like so. Or you can have someone just hold up their hand and place this packet in their hand, right? And so the conversation during which this could occur could have been, oh yeah, can you hold out your hand? And then you then pass this packet over, deposit the card, and then place this card in their hand, right? So there's so many reasons why you could have a conversation in between, right? So you have this packet placed in front, and there's an indifferent card placed on top of the selection. Actually, I'll do it with a face-up card. So card selected, show this card around, turn it back face down, obviously, but get ready first. Turn it back face down. I'll leave it face up for the sake of explanation. Left hand in front, right hand in back. The two hands cross each other. From here, deposit this card on top of the selection. Place this packet in front, either on the table or in someone else's hand. And from there, you can then cleanly push over this card, place it on top of this table packet, and then just toss it on top. Square everything up, and this card is going to be on top of the deck, right? So that's the overall choreography for this particular control, right? Here, right? Here, get ready, right? Turn it back face down, pass it back over, pass it back over, square up, and then card is on top, right? So then this can be used in the context of an ambitious card routine as well. So since the deck is already in the spectator's hands, assuming that you did the can you hold out your hand or whatever, and then you place the packet in their hand, you can then ask someone to actually, ask them to actually have their other hand come over this deck over here, right? And then you can then ask them to imagine their card rising to the top via their touch or whatever, and then have them remove their hand and then reveal that their card has risen to the top, right? So just from a control, you can have this transition into an ambitious card, right? So play around with the choreography, the timing, and just the pacing of everything, right? Because just having, right, this crossover here, hold out their hand, and doing this, right? It looks like a completely different move because suddenly my hands aren't hovering awkwardly together, right? And I'm not doing this move immediately after showing this card around. There's a break in between, right? So try and play around with the overall choreography, the timing, and everything like that, right? Don't just steal my choreography. I mean, you can. I'm showing it to you now, but just try and play around with things, okay? And you'll be surprised by how well your moves actually just look, right? But of course, like every other move, this move has its pros and its cons. The benefit to the Switch is that you can do it as many times as necessary, right? Much like a second deal or a glide, you can endlessly do this move, right? You can endlessly add cards on top of this card, right? Oh, well, that card just shot away. You can do this move as many times as you like, right? Right? You can do this move as many times as you'd like, right? Because unlike a double lift, if you do a double lift and then you have this card inserted elsewhere, right? you can't do anything else about it because this card is now a single, right? You're stuck here. But with the tip over change, you can endlessly add cards on top. The problem is that this move needs to be done in a very specific position, right? It needs to be done with both packets separated, with the selection on top of the bottom packet, and both halves are, again, they're separated, and one half has to be in your right hand, right? So it has to be done from this very, very specific position. Whereas most switches are either done on top of the deck when the deck is squared up and together, okay? It also lacks any sort of isolation or separation from the rest of the deck, right? With the top change, the card is completely isolated, right? The card is completely isolated and it still has that change, right? With the downs change, the card is side jogged, right? The two of spades is indeed side jogged. So there is inherently an element of separation with the downs change, but because this card is on top of a packet, it feels like one unit with the rest of the deck, right? So there's not really an element of isolation or separation with this move. But again, you can endlessly do this move, right? And it also has the added benefit of this card is automatically lost in the center of the deck. So that's just a couple of benefits and cons with the downs change, with the tip over change, compared to the other switches that we've spoken about on this channel. And so yeah. So yeah, if you're interested in the tip over change, of course, you can always look at Daryl's ambitious card Omnibus by Daryl, written by Stephen Minch, The Collected Works of Alex Elmsley, Volume 1 by Alex Elmsley, Paige Wright's Manuscript by Paige Wright, and then Vernon Chronicles, Volume 3 by Di Vernon. So those are just a couple of resources regarding the tip over change that you can look at. Of course, you can always take a look at the other various changes that I've presented throughout this series, changes, switches. In the past, they kind of used them interchangeably, but those are just a couple of things they can look at. Again, this is the 5th Switch Livestream Lecture. So again, there are 4 other switches that you can take a look at. And so yeah, feel free to take a look at those resources. And so yeah, that is the tip over change. Like many of the other switches that we've spoken about, or other moves that we've spoken about, choreography and timing play a vital role in how a move feels and looks, right? And depending on how it feels and looks, of course, it can either look better or worse, right? So again, my main problem with this was that people just hovered the packets too close together, or they just rushed the hell of it, right? Which I'm not the biggest fan of, which is why there was the choreography for the control, right? Over here, and then that, right? So don't just perform a move as you read or learned it, right? Play around with it. Make it so that the move suits your character, your performance style, and you'll find that your moves will actually look a lot more cohesive with the routine / effect that you're performing, right? Because then it suddenly suits you. You're not just doing a move because you're doing a move. You're doing a move because it looks like it's part of your character, right? So again, you don't have to directly just use this choreography if you want, right? You can feel free to just have another choreography if you have something else in mind, right? This again is just a suggestion that I'm making based on my own sort of experiences and ideas. So again, feel free to play around with the choreography and timing of everything, right? Because at the end of the day, you're you. There's only one you over here, and you're the only person who knows how you perform. So why not just change moves according to how you would actually perform them, right? Because, well, if everyone just performed the moves the same as everyone else, there would be no reason for any more like magicians, right? So don't be afraid to implement your own ideas, your own personality into moves, right? Break them up, try different things with them. Don't be afraid if it doesn't work, right? And so, yeah, just play around with moves and add your own flair to them. But yeah, that's the final entry to the Switch Livestream Lecture series. That was the 5th and final one, the tip over change. I mean, we've spoken about so many switches. We've spoken about a lot of category of moves over the course of the Livestream Lecture series. I mean, changes, passes, palms, and now switches. And so yeah, we've gone through a lot of categories. I'm actually not really sure what other category of move I can really get into, so I might be taking a break from live streams while I figure sort of things out. But for now, yeah, that was the tip over change, and I hope you enjoyed it. And so yeah, hope you guys have a good one. Stay healthy, stay safe, and see you guys next time. Yeah, all right. Well, see you and take care.